Welcome once again, and thank you all for staying with the NTV Weekend Edition. On Talk of the Nation tonight, we do dive into once again the PLE results a few days after these were released. We see that there is concern that after seeing that statistics show that 1.1 million learners did drop out of school between primary 1 and primary 7. Now, this high number of school dropouts has been consistent over the last 5 cohorts, and this is where we want to base our discussion this evening. In our studios, we have Mr. Musa Mugoya, who is the Program Officer with the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights. A very good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Sandra, and thank you very much for hosting me, and also good evening to our viewers.
Well, diving into our discussion today, when you look at the statistics as of 2013, 1,875,553 young ones did enroll in primary 1. Now, those that sat for their PLE in 2020, it is really the statistics show that we are looking at 736,942. That is a difference of 1,138,611. Does this worry you?
Absolutely, it does worry me, and of course it should be a worry to the rest of us, Ugandans and the country at large. The figure is quite alarming, and now it is almost like we can't account for over 5 million children. But you know, since the introduction of UPE, and of course since the introduction of UPE in 1997, many children have been falling off the crack. So we need answers. Where are they? I mean, education is an important tool in the development of a nation. If you're having children dropping out of school, there is no way you're going to achieve your aspirations, because at the end of the day, human resource is very key for the growth of an economy.
We are also just curious to know which class is the most affected. At what point is it primary 2, primary 4? From your own analysis and interaction with different people, would you be clear on which class sees the highest number of young people dropping off?
When you look at the data from Ministry of Education and Sports, it indicates that out of the 10 children that enroll in primary 1, only 3 reach primary 7. That means from the 10 that enroll at primary 1,
we lose about 7.
We lose about 7. And when you, from the work we do, because that is our daily work, engaging, monitoring education service delivery in the country, when you go to schools, you find that in primary 1, the enrollment is so high. But when you go to starting around primary 5, the number continues reducing. But I think the major issue here, what we should discuss, what is the root cause of this school dropout? When you look at the Uganda National Household Survey, it indicates that 68% of the boys that drop out of school and 65% of the girls that drop out of school, it is as a result of the financial constraints. We have, for example, for private schools, school fees is not regulated. You find a school in maybe at Uganda Road, a private, I'm just giving an example. At Uganda Road, you find another private school at Wandegea, but this one is charging maybe 200,000, the other one is charging 100,000. So there is no regulation at all. And unfortunately, these children who can't afford the private schools would have been taken up by government schools, those ones which are implementing UPE. However, even those ones are now charging. It's almost right now across the country, each UPE school is charging. They'll set up, they'll ask all sorts of fees, maybe examination fees, bus fees, development fees. And what is surprising, when you go to such a school and even ask the development for which money has been collected, it cannot be seen. Despite the fact that actually collection of parent and teacher fees were outlawed in UPE, many schools are charging that money. And the reason they say the amount of money given by government in form of capitation grant, I think now it is around 12,000 per learner per year. That is, if you divide by 3 terms, that is 4,000. they say that money is inadequate. And up to now, Ministry of Education, for example, has never given an explanation what informs that allocation. There has never been a study to inform that allocation, to say this is the unit cost required to educate a child in primary and secondary. So the major issue as of now, which is pushing children out of school, it is mainly financial constraints, because their parents cannot afford, and maybe they don't even have the support to provide from wherever. Either maybe someone like any bystander who will be who will come in to support, they are not there. So at the end of the day, they are dropping out.
Over the years, do you think the ministry has been very vocal to come out and say these, say early marriage, say street vending, sort of encouraging young people to drop out of school and, you know, hit the streets, to sort of address what you already pointed out, financial constraints? Do you think the government, the Ministry of Education to be specific, has been very vocal to address some of these issues that lead to the dropout of these young people? I
think, as I've indicated, the solution to address the dropout at a large extent will be to handle the financing of primary education and even secondary education.
To make it completely free, is that what you would want? To make it easier for everybody to attain an education?
Yes, but that is it. Under the Constitution and even the Education Act, basic education is a right. And it clearly indicates, when you, for example, look at the Education Act, it clearly discerns the responsibilities of the parents and the government. The government reserves the responsibility of financing, so it must provide the required amount of money. But to go to other points which you're raising, the ones of early marriage, of course, other factors which are contributing, you talk about a lack of interest by the pupil, a parent, him or herself deciding to take a child into child labor and early marriage and so on. Those ones, I think it is first of all for the child labor, it is the responsibility of also the parent to ensure that the child is not engaged in child labor. Two, it is also a responsibility of me and you, who usually have some money, and we act selfishly. We take our children to school, but we get other people's children to work on our farms, and even some of us even employ children of even under 12 or under 15 to work for us in our homes. So that is also should be the responsibility of the citizens on their part. But also maybe government can also go ahead and ensure that those ones who employ children, to work, children of school going age, during school time, should be held accountable.
So in the short term, general public should stay away from employing young children. They should ideally be in school in the short term.
Yes.
And in the long term, the government should work towards ensuring that there is free education for every single pupil, every single young person in this country.
Actually, yes, I agree for that. In the short term, we should ensure that there are no children employed during school time.
So different stakeholders should work together.
Yes, but also for the financing, that one should have been done long time ago, because we have been with you. Actually, UPE now is almost older than many people in this country. UPE now, I think, is coming to 24 years, so it has had all the time to do effective planning to ensure that all children are catered for. But actually also the most appropriate way how they can handle that, the recent amendment of the Children's Act made the registration of children at birth as a matter of right. So, and right now, since we are implementing program-based budgeting, it would be good for Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Gender to come together, National Planning Authority, UBOS and so on, to come together and they build a very strong and robust data collection system, such that when a child is registered at birth, they have that database. Because if, for example, you have registered and you know the number of children who have been born this year, you will know the number that will require you to put in place measures to accommodate them in 2017. Because under our arrangement, they say the child should enroll in primary one at the age of 6. So I think that will be the appropriate way. Once you have that data, it will enable them, government to do effective planning and find the resources that are needed. But also the other issue will be to, in the short term, of course, they also have to register even these ones who are there. to deal with the challenge of tracking even the dropouts.
Yes.
Right now, what happened in Sandwa is that if I've been attending Sandwa Primary School and I leave and join Mugoya Primary School, I'll be counted as a dropout because there is no mechanism
That shows that you moved from one school to
yes,
another.
to another. The other issue will also be to ensure that there is regulation of school fees. Education is a social good. Where government fails to provide education and the private sector is playing a role, the government must ensure that the charges which are levied are regulated, not to allow people, this one is asking 100,000, the other one is asking 1 million, the other one is asking 500,000, yet they are in the same locality, the standard of living is the same, and you find that if you go to the other school and even this one, the services are not that different.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Musa Mugoya, for joining us tonight. He is the program officer at the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights, joining us to speak about the high rates of school dropouts, considering that PLE results have just been released in the past. Well, we'll continue to have this discussion, but most importantly, to realize that different stakeholders need to work together to see that all pupils, all young people can attain education. You're still watching NTV Weekend Edition. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with more.